everybody, I am Jarrett Ross, the Genie Vlogger, and welcome back to another Professional Genealogist Reacts. On today's video, I will be reacting to My Dad Was Adopted, So I Took a DNA Test to Fill in the Gaps by Crew, Paul, and Linda. Now this is a channel I am not familiar with. I took a look through it and it looks like this is an American expat living in Mexico, and that's kind of the basis of their videos. Don't really know what type of ancestry we're gonna look for here necessarily, but being that his father was adopted, I'm guessing he probably didn't really know himself. But even more, this video is probably going to look into DNA matches, which is what I really care about way more than those admixture percentages, because those admixture percentages are just estimates that can be read in a lot of different ways. DNA matches are a whole different thing that can actually let you expand your family tree and discover your unknown ancestry. So someone like an adoptee, such as his father, can use this to identify their biological family. So hopefully that's what we're gonna see. That said, let's just jump on into it.
My dad was born in October of 1944 during World War II in Denmark. Well, at least I believe it was Denmark, because shortly after his birth, he ended up in an orphanage in Denmark. And I know what happened after that, but I don't know what happened before. I don't know anything about my family there, if I have any relatives, anything else. And I've always wondered. So when MyHeritage reached out to me to partner on a video, they asked if I was interested in finding those things out. I was like, yeah, definitely, 100%.
MyHeritage is a perfect company to have for this, because coming from a Danish ancestry, I think he has a better expectation of finding DNA matches who still live in Denmark and Europe, as opposed to if he looked onto the other websites, because they don't have as robust of a database in terms of actual people living in Europe. With that said, I often find that MyHeritage does lean a bit more Eastern European with that, but I do find that I see more people who are living in Europe and grew up in Europe, actual Europeans, not just people with European ancestry, and so that would probably be what he's looking for. Definitely doesn't mean that it may not be useful to go to Ancestry or 23andMe or Family Tree DNA or Living DNA or uploading to GenMatch, because there may be matches in there that may be the key to solving whatever he's looking for. Granted, I imagine he's already solved it, but you just never know what database is the one that the cousin that you're looking for or the relative you're looking for actually tested in.
I'm going to do my DNA results. Linda's going to do hers also, and we're going to see what we come up with. So we're going to do a DNA test today.
So I didn't realize that it was going to actually be both of them doing the DNA test, which is awesome. No clue about her ancestry, but knowing that they're living in Mexico and just based on her looks, I do wonder if maybe she has some sort of a Mexican ancestry. And if that is the case, more than likely we'll see specific readings connected to Mexico or at least Central America and maybe Southwest US or something, depending on the family ancestry. And then probably some sort of Iberian in there as well, plus other mixtures too, because there were a lot of people who migrated to Mexico.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
I think it will definitely do ladies first.
Okay, let's do it.
So this is what I really like too. Once the results come in, there's a link in your email, and that's what we're going to show you here. So we're going to open up with Linda's.
So they're going to show the video.
Let me get my glasses
on. A little weird,
yeah,
the world video.
In front of us.
Which honestly, I kind of hate that little world video thing that MyHeritage does. Maybe it's because I've seen probably 1,000 of them at this point, and they're all exactly the same. But I kind of just, I always hate that reveal one at a time sort of thing, because then you can't analyze things as easily. Like, just show me the whole thing.
All right, let's go.
Yeah.
Such suspense.
Iberian.
Oh.
Spain. We knew that.
Yeah.
Right.
And a quarter Iberian about. So that's the equivalent of a grandparent, although if she is coming from a Mexican ancestry, which I still have no idea what her ancestry is exactly, guess we'll find out. But that would certainly make sense and would be something we'd be expecting through both sides, so it probably wouldn't necessarily be one grandparent it's coming from.
Right. Linda's from Colombia, so that's not a big surprise.
Okay, so she's coming from Colombia. That's going to be a little bit different than what we'll expect for a Mexican ancestry, but we can already see that she's getting this 24.5% Scandinavian in there, which is pretty interesting, but I guess we'll have to see what they say in terms of was she expecting Northwestern European, especially Scandinavian, or is this kind of out of the ordinary what they'd expect? Granted, if they expect anything like British or Irish or Scottish or French or German, Scandinavian is not surprising at all. Oh, 26.3%.
Scandinavia. 26.3% Scandinavia. The percentages are showing up over there.
Maybe we're cousins.
Maybe we're cousins.
There we go, Mesoamerican and
Really,
Andean. See, and if we were expecting someone with a Mexican ancestry, we would probably still get Mesoamerican and Andean, but I think we would probably also expect Indigenous American that's a bit more northern, or at least we would, that's what we would think would be more correlated, but it's never really a guarantee.
Mesoamerican and Andean.
More of that Northwestern European.
8.1% Irish, Scottish, Welsh.
Well, we knew the Irish.
Yeah, from your dad's side, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
then we have 5 more, which hopefully they show the breakdown of it, but it looks like we're getting Nigeria, North Africa, the Balkans, I guess maybe just Eastern Europe, and then Finland. And based on everything we've already seen, those 5 other ethnicities don't stand out too crazily, except for maybe the Nigeria, and we'll have to see how big that is. But if she's coming from a Colombian ancestry, African ancestry is not unexpected for people who are Colombian.
And 5 more ethnicities.
What?
Yeah, I'm curious.
More?
Let's see. Well, you thought you were some American Indian, right? But that didn't light up.
That does not show up at all.
No.
Somebody was telling stories.
So when she says American Indian, I guess she's saying basically Native American in the areas of present-day U.S. and Canada, which then obviously it's going to vary depending on where they're coming from. Is it the Micmac up in where Canada was, or is it going to be the Cherokee, or is it going to be the Lumbee, or is it going to be the Potawatomi, or, I feel like, depending on what you'd be expecting, it may vary. Similarly, how with a Colombian ancestry for her, I was expecting a more South American, Indigenous American. But I guess maybe we'll hear what they say about that a bit more, because maybe she is thinking Indigenous American in like Central America and South America, but for whatever reason is expecting it to show as Native American?
Maybe. So we have view full ethnicity estimate. So let's go down what we didn't know.
Okay.
Oh, it breaks it down a little bit more.
So very trace for the other stuff. The Finnish is 1.6%. The Balkan is 1.1%. Both of those kind of correlating to that Scandinavian, Northwestern European ancestry. And then that Balkan also kind of tying in with that 5% East European ancestry. So assuming all of those are kind of lumped together, that makes me think it would be like a second great-grandparent who would be fully Eastern European, assuming that it's coming from one recent common ancestor as opposed to multiple different ancestors. But it could also be that these are representative of other things. So this is the difficulty with the percentages, is you never know quite what it's saying, and all you can do is hypothesize the many different things that it could possibly be, but you don't know for sure until you actually do the genealogy and prove it. But let's see what the other percentages
5% Eastern European. Looks like Ukraine, all that area.
Cool.
1.6% Finnish.
Wow.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Well, that's still the same Scandinavian.
Now, very interesting. We can already see the community right here, and that's in the southeastern U.S., and I wonder what that's going to correlate to, if it's going to say something specific about like Native American ancestry in the southeastern U.S., or is this going to be a European migration to the southeastern U.S., which is interesting because I guess I'd also wonder, what is her true ancestry? Is she herself purely Colombian, or is she coming from an ancestry where, one parent's Colombian and one parent is, typical kind of American European ancestry? We really didn't get that much background for either of them other than his dad is adopted.
1.1% Balkan, 26.1 Mesoamerican, and Dan here. So that's obviously your family's, you're born in Colombia.
Yeah.
So that's not...
That makes sense.
Born in Colombia, okay. But still, question of, were her parents both Colombian or something else?
That makes sense. This doesn't make as much sense. So 2.6% Nigerian.
Huh. That is cool.
I would not have guessed that. And
No.
2.4% North African.
And that North African could correlate to the Iberian ancestry she has. Anyone who knows the history of all of that makes a lot of sense, and it kind of also ties into anything else that she's kind of getting right around the Mediterranean. Not quite, but all of that kind of ties together a little bit. The Nigerian does stand out, except for the fact of what I was talking about with South American results. It's not uncommon to get African readings, but I don't know how different that is between North South America and South America. That's so weird to say.
That one's not as big a stretch because Spain is so close. I mean,
yep.
So that
I got to give him props. Not everybody gets that. In fact, I've been surprised at how many videos people are like, what's Iberian? And then they're coming from a South American or Central American ancestry. And it's like, you don't know Iberian? I guess not everyone knows everything, obviously, but it's just surprising.
Any surprises there?
Well, yeah. I had no idea I had that much Scandinavian.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty...
Yeah, I wonder what that's...
significant.
That is pretty significant. An interesting thing here is we have the DNA matches thing. So let's see what that looks like.
Now, hers will be very interesting because, like I mentioned before, with my heritage having a lot of Eastern European and generally European testers, my heritage is also known for having a very large database of South American testers. So I'll be interested to see if she's getting a lot of matches showing her Colombian ancestry.
So it's got 12,825 DNA matches.
Pretty good. And you can see that she's already connected her results to the MyHeritage system, basically meaning that she's built a family tree and connected the results to say, this is where I am in the tree. And that's where she's getting all this ancestral surnames common to you and this match. Your family tree has this many smart matches and blah, blah, blah. So this is a pretty good cousin. We can see from USA in the 60s, this is a second cousin, 297.4 centimorgans, which doesn't mean it is a second cousin exactly. It's just what they're listing as this is the most probable relationship that we're giving you. But in reality, there's a whole bunch of relationships it could be. And the way to look into that is to go to what's known as the Shared Centimorgan Project and enter in that amount so that you can see what are the correlating possibilities, because maybe it's a second cousin, but maybe it's actually a first cousin once removed, or maybe it's a second cousin once removed, or maybe it's a great aunt, or maybe it's something else.
Second cousins.
Now we've got another. Oh, we just missed it. Let's see. Okay. Now we've got another one we see from Netherlands. Now I don't quite see where it is, but it says, second cousin's daughter. We also have this other one right above that seems to be USA in her 80s. Parent second cousin, so 184.6 centimorgans. So decent match list. Granted, we don't see anyone in Colombia, which is what I was kind of hoping for, but we do see one of her matches is from the Netherlands.
Tells you what percentage of the DNA is shared. That's cool.
That is pretty cool. Wow.
Parents second cousin, parents third cousin.
Okay. Paul, you are 68.9% English.
English? Huh.
Must be my mom's side.
Yeah, I think.
So we're getting the typical Northwestern European admixture.
And that's
that?
That's it.
What?
So he's Northwestern European, and unfortunately for most Northwestern Europeans, admixtures like this are not really going to tell you anything genealogically. They're going to paint a very, very, very blurry image of your ancestry, and that's where the DNA matches comes in. And so hopefully he will dive into those. And I don't know if he's going to say if he solved his family history, the adoption, but hopefully he is working on it if he hasn't already solved it.
Not a lot going on in here.
Not a lot of variety.
Not a lot of variety in here.
Not like all those other circles on the other map.
I mean, look at me. I look pretty like Scandinavian-ish, Northern Europe kind of guy. But I still expected some, surprises. Like you were all over the place.
Yeah.
You were all over the place.
All right.
Okay, now this is the big one: the DNA matches. That might be blank too. I still want to see your name in there.
No.
You have a lot of Scandinavian.
Yeah.
That was surprising. So we have over 10.
Okay, and check that out. First match is from Norway, second match from Denmark, and that first match at 433 centimorgans. If he doesn't know who that is, that may be the key to him finding his biological family and finding out who are his father's biological parents, who are his biological paternal grandparents. And then right below we have a Denmark with 116.4 centimorgans, which isn't the greatest of matches necessarily, but that's a pretty good match. And, with the first match, they have a family tree up, And the second match, I don't know if they do, but if they do, then, that's a great start, because for a lot of people, they get their DNA matches and they have to try to figure out the tree because they don't share it and they don't respond to messages or, just various things that can be a roadblock. Whereas when they actually include all the information, you've got it right there and you can figure it out.
10,000 DNA matches. Parents' first cousin, Norway.
Wow.
A lot of folks in Denmark, third cousins.
Just like I was expecting. A lot of people in Denmark, because this is the benefit of the MyHeritage database. They have a lot of Europeans in there. And if you have a very recent European ancestry, or you are in Europe and your family, has been in Europe for generations, MyHeritage may be the best place for you to test to find DNA matches. Still doesn't mean that you're not going to find any useful matches in the other databases. It's very possible there's great matches there as well. It's just that in my experience, you're going to find a lot of your cousins, a lot more of the cousins that are still in those areas in Europe on MyHeritage.
That's amazing. So there's all of these people appear to be related to that I had no idea any of this. I really expected when we did this that there may be a name or no names. I didn't expect to have 10,000 potential links of family members and family trees and all this stuff I've never knew existed. So I'll be spending a lot of time playing with that, and I don't know, maybe reach out to somebody, maybe not.
Cool.
I don't know.
All right, that was a great video. Little disappointed that he hadn't figured it out. For some reason, the title made me think like, oh, he figured out who his biological grandparents are. But I haven't seen a video dive into the DNA matches like that when it's really been a admixture video. They rarely show the matches, so that was awesome. And seeing his matches, I am very confident that someone would be able to figure out who his father's biological parents are. Could take some time, but just using some of the tools in MyHeritage could actually help him to figure that out. So one of the things that he could use that MyHeritage has is the auto cluster. Basically, he runs an auto cluster and it creates this graph that splits your matches into all of these groups, clusters that they call them. And in each cluster, the assumption is that each one of those DNA matches has shared ancestry with each other and you all together. Basically, you all share a set of recent common ancestors. So once you've run an auto cluster, you go into each cluster and go through each name and look at their family trees or build their family trees, try to expand them as much as you can, and try to identify the connections between those trees. So maybe you look at a cluster and you look at their trees and you realize, oh, these two matches are second cousins to each other. Well, however those two matches connect, you're going to also somehow connect there as well. You may not descend from the same ancestors that they share, because if they're closer relatives than you are to them, you'll be sharing a more distant ancestor to them, but you at least know where in their family tree to look, because if you have a family tree, you have 4 grandparents, you have 8 great-grandparents, and etc. If you're able to decipher that, oh, these are second cousins to each other and they share this set of great-grandparents, then okay, out of all of these 8 great-grandparents that they have, I only have to focus on this pair. And then once you've identified the ancestors of different clusters, so if you have cluster 1 and you identify what the ancestor is that is shared amongst all of those folks, and then you go to cluster 2 and you find the ancestor that's shared amongst all of those folks, and then you expand both of those trees as much as possible, eventually you're going to find some sort of marriage between those trees. And it's where you find that marriage that you're going to descend from. And especially if you can find that marriage that's, not too far in the past, that's going to give you a fairly finite number of people to look at who are possibly your biological ancestor. And one last thing to consider that has nothing to do with the DNA is that if his father was born in Denmark, he should look into the possibility of trying to get that actual birth record. Don't know what the deal is going to be with it, especially with a World War II birth, 1944. Records are probably all over the place depending on where he is, but still looking and seeing what record sets exist for births in Denmark in 1944, or even better, if he knows where in Denmark that was, then he may have a better idea. Was it in Copenhagen or was it out in Falster Island? It's going to be a difference in terms of what record sets you're probably going to be looking for. Now, if you enjoyed this reaction and you'd like to see more reactions just like this, be sure to check out this video right here. Thank you to my Patreon patrons and YouTube members.